With the new The Legend of Zelda title, Tears of the Kingdom, releasing this week, some old criticisms of its predecessor, Breath of the Wild, have sprung up, including the weapon breaking system, needing to find food and cook, and even the storyline has taken knocks as being somewhat weak. Overall, most Zelda fans enjoyed Breath of the Wild, and many hold the game in high regard as one of the greatest Zelda games ever made. But those criticisms remain out there, especially from those who regard the older Nintendo 64 series entry, Ocarina of Time, as the greatest Zelda, and also those who think the SNES Zelda title, A Link to the Past, is the greatest of all time. I am here to defend Breath of the Wild against some of the criticisms, as I am confident this is the greatest Zelda game Nintendo ever released. To start off, Breath of the Wild is not like any Zelda title before it. Players are given the ability to explore and play how they want to play the game, which is great. No longer does Link find a sword and shield near the beginning and progress in a linear manner while gaining more equipment and collecting hearts to replenish health. Now players need to think about how to find weapons and shields, and they need to find food for health, and certain powers may come up with the right combination of foods such as extra stamina and cold and heat resistance, etc. However, players who love the past Zelda titles might think this one is odd. In past Zelda games, Link's sword and shield do not break. Players do not need to cook food. They could concentrate more on the adventure rather than worry about whether their weapon will be gone or whether there is enough food in their inventory to cook or the right type of food. But I don't mind those elements being added to a Zelda title. In fact, I enjoy them. To start off with the weapon breaking system, it only stinks in the beginning parts of the game because Link starts off almost naked without anything to fight enemies with. That only means the player needs to use some creativity though. How do you fight a monster without being given a weapon first? Oh wait, maybe I could find a branch or a stick of some sort. Will that work? Well, I have to try. Won't the branch break? Players just need to be extra patient at first. It's fun to not be handed a sword and come up with ways to kill monsters. Players need to use their mind, and that's not a bad thing. Ever watched the show Naked and Afraid, where contestants must find a way to survive in some remote location in the jungle or the forest or the desert? They need to think of creative ways to hunt for food, and that is part of the fun in watching those challenges. Once players figure out how to kill enemies with a stick or in some other way in Breath of the Wild, then they can start collecting weapons and filling up those inventory slots. Besides beating moblins for a new sword or bow, maybe Link can just stumble across a sword sitting in the middle of a lake. Who knows? Just explore the world and see what is lying in random spots. If players keep their calm and stay patient with Breath of the Wild in the beginning, they will soon find themselves picking up more swords and shields and bows than slots available. This is the ultimate irony of the complaints, because there's a certain point in the game where players need to constantly decide which weapons or armor to drop in favor of new and improved ones. At that point, does it really matter if the weapons break? There are so many ways to find a sword, including just waiting for a blood moon and doing one of the test of strength shrines. Most of them reward Link by giving a shiny guardian sword or shield, or maybe both items, not to mention the master sword itself never breaks. The Master Sword might need to recharge though, which is fair as the game might become too easy otherwise. But the point is, the player will almost never run out of weapons or armor in the middle to late parts of the game, and if that happens, finding new weapons or armor is not too hard. As for finding food and cooking, sure, at some points this might feel repetitive, but overall it's just another way to immerse the player into the experience of fighting nature's elements. Where do I get the food? What kind of food do I need? Is there a place nearby where I can cook? These are all questions someone would ask themselves if they become stuck in the middle of nowhere with nothing to help them. Sure, Link can hunt innocent animals for food. He can find a body of water with fish and bomb them to death. Those who do not want Link to eat meat could also just spend their time searching for apples. In previous Zelda games, Link would replenish his health by collecting hearts, but isn't it more realistic for Link to become hungry as time goes on and need actual food to keep him going? It's too simple to slash through some bushes and find hearts to collect. Breath of the Wild is great at having players interact with its environment. Making the player think creatively on how to hunt or collect for food is just another way to immerse someone in the experience of exploring this beautiful world. Now to discuss the storyline. What is wrong with it? If I understand right, Princess Zelda and company were under attack from Calamity Ganon about 100 years ago. Nothing went their way in the war. The divine beasts that were meant to help the kingdom fight were taken over by various forms of Calamity Ganon, and the special champions who were navigating those divine beasts died while trying to retain control of them. Zelda had put Link in a special chamber where he could sleep and wake up in 100 years. Link woke up, but sleeping all those years came with some consequences as he lost some important memories and his clothing and equipment were now gone as well. Link was near naked in the wild. Now Link needed to figure out who he is, what is going on, and recapture lost memories from the past. Who is this old guy that tries to guide Link in the beginning? Where is Zelda? What kind of relationship did Link and Mipha have before she had to die while defending the Divine Beast? It's up to Link to retake control of the Divine Beast after 100 years and confront Calamity Ganon. I see nothing wrong with this main storyline. Did any of the previous Zelda games before this one have some grand storyline that I'm forgetting about, or was it always save the princess or beat Ganon, etc.? Perhaps Majora's Mask had kind of a neat storyline with the moon slowly crashing down on the helpless town and Link needing to deal with the crazy Skull Kid, but even Majora's Mask held back in some ways. Zelda storylines were always a little on the shallow side. Now here's a story where Link has to uncover the prequel story and find out things about himself. How did Link become a champion? How did the kingdom lose to Calamity Ganon? Did I mention Mipha? She seemed like a caring soul. Those memories that Link uncovers through standing in familiar spots really add to the depth of the story, and as Link, players need to finish the story after they gain a full understanding of what went on and take back control of the Divine Beast. I'm missing what's wrong. There is intrigue in wondering if Link can pull off saving the world after sleeping for 100 years. Shooting for the impossible after being gone for so long is a great story. Regardless, Nintendo has always favored gameplay first over storylines, and that is why Nintendo games typically do not hold the player's hand too tightly in the beginning parts. In the first Zelda game, players aren't given a long text explaining the story of what Link is doing. Link picks up a sword from that cave on the top left, and players can immediately start exploring and fighting enemies without any explanation. It's not too different now with Breath of the Wild, although Nintendo does provide some hand-holding through the old man at the start. Breath of the Wild is an excellent Zelda title. I call it the best Zelda title, and I'd be surprised if most people did not rank it in the top 3 of all-time best Zelda games out there. I'd like to urge gamers who did not enjoy Breath of the Wild to give it another shot. Sure, it's not the same as previous Zelda games, but that doesn't mean it's bad. As for those who did love the open world Zelda style and everything that came with it, we have something in common. Have a good day, everyone.